Welcome to Empower Her Radio, the space for powerhouse women ready to step into their next level of abundance, purpose, and personal freedom. I'm Dr. Corey Winn, a high performance coach, doctor of physical therapy, philanthropist, and business consultant. I help ambitious women align with their highest calling, expand their wealth and impact, and create a life that feels as good as it looks. If you're a high achieving woman who's built success yet finds yourself craving more alignment, more purpose, more ease, you're in the right place. Here, we bridge the gap between ambition and fulfillment. Through transformative conversations and proven strategies, you'll gain the courage to step into the fullest expression of you. Build a powerhouse business that aligns with your expertise and divine gifts, and lead your life, both personally and professionally, with unshakable confidence, worthiness, and compassion. This is about expansion, legacy, and owning your power unapologetically. You already have everything inside of you to create a life of unlimited possibility. It's time to unlock it. Welcome to your next level. Let's dive in. Today, I am so excited to have a guest whose story is expansive as her art. Alexandra Beller began her career as a professional dancer with the Bill T. Jones Arnie Zane Dance Company, performing globally and living fully in the language of movement. But her path didn't stop there. She evolved into a visionary choreographer, director, educator, and writer, guiding others to reconnect with their bodies, their stories, and their truth. Now, she's the artistic director of Alexandra Beller Dances. Alexandra has created more than 40 dance theater works across the world, taught at some of the most prestigious universities, and built a life around somatic wisdom and authentic expression. She's directing theater, teaching internationally, and writing 2 books that pull back the curtain on embodiment and the creative process. Welcome to the show, Alexandra.
Thank you so much, Corey.
So much. We were just talking before I started recording. I love all things art, movement, dance. I was a dancer myself. So how did you get there? Tell us your whole journey.
Oh, the whole one. I started dancing. I started dancing when I was a kid, very much of my own volition, like just really wanted to do it. Went to an arts day camp, I think, when I was 8, and you picked a major and a minor. And at the time, I was really into visual art and painting.
Mhm.
So I picked modern dance as a minor. So you did like an hour of it a day or 2 hours a day. And then that was it for me. I was just totally hooked. And people used to say in that, somewhat condescending way we say to kids, like, would you know what you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, oh, I'm already doing it. I'm a
Uh-huh.
dancer, like not I'm going to be a dancer. And
Mhm.
that's the way it panned out. Even though I did not have a traditional dancer's body, I was bigger than teenagers my age and teenagers in dance. And, most of my teachers were pretty pessimistic and said, you're not going to quote unquote make it as a dancer. But to me, there wasn't a choice. So I did it. And I think people at the time coded it as brave to, try to make it as a professional dancer when you didn't have a typical dancer's body. But it didn't really feel brave to me. It just felt inevitable.
Mhm.
So I figured I'll do this. I'll get as far as I'll get, and then I'll find some other passion, and I'll go back to school and I'll do something else. But
And look at you. Look at you now.
but it turned out actually they were wrong.
Yeah,
And
they were.
so I ended up with this professional dance career that was not anything I could possibly have imagined or fantasized about. And during that time, I felt really drawn towards making my own work and choreographing. So after 7 years, I left and started doing that. And I was along the way doing a lot of teaching and learning to teach while teaching, which can be an amazing way to learn pedagogy and leaves some gaps and insecurities. So
Uh-huh.
I don't particularly feel like an MFA is necessary to be a great teacher. I think plenty of great teachers don't need any kind of degrees. But I also have a neurodivergent brain, and I just felt like I needed some systems to organize my thoughts and all of these different modalities that I'd learned, somatic practices and different dance styles and philosophies, psychology, neurology. It was all these different things that were swimming in my brain. So I did go and get an MFA, and I also got something called a CMA, which is Certified Movement Analyst. It's a degree in a practice called Laban Movement Analysis,
Uh-huh.
and that is a system for analyzing human movement towards meaning that eventually became the field of nonverbal communication, and a lot of other things grew out of it. So I studied that and really tried to deepen my teaching practice. And then because of that work, I was able to get into theater and start choreographing for plays. And honestly, my first rehearsal where I was the choreographer for a play, which was the Shakespeare play Two Gentlemen of Verona, um, I just felt like I had walked back into my house that I grew up in,
Uh-huh.
you know?
Oh, I love that.
It was like everything felt right and familiar, but oh yeah, and I forgot it. And oh, I can use this, and I haven't seen this in forever. And it just felt both familiar and also so novel and exciting. And so I've spent the last 12 years predominantly working with actors and helping them find their authenticity and their easy route to expression.
Mhm.
And that brought me into dealing with trauma and healing and repatterning. So now I do a lot of different things. I am finishing both of these books that you mentioned. I'm teaching movement classes. I coach people privately in what is essentially dance movement therapy.
Mhm.
And I still choreograph and direct for theater.
That's awesome. I so love that your journey started. I don't want to say thumbing your nose because I feel like that's rather harsh, but just like, no, I'm doing this. And I don't care if there's an ideal body type. I don't care if the path hasn't been paved for me yet. And, you know, from somebody who studied mostly ballet, as much as I think that it's beautiful and I loved it at the time, I don't want to ever have my daughter in ballet because of the body stereotypes, because of the body dysmorphia that comes so often with it. And the strongest dancers that I've ever known were not typical body shaped dancers. One of my most wonderful teachers was a dance teacher in high school, and she was a modern dancer. And I just remember sitting in class watching her and just being like in absolute awe of all the things that she could do
Yeah.
and exploring your life, going through trauma and showing your authenticity through dance is just so powerful. Working in theater and everything that you do now, what are you helping your clients kind of work through? Is
Mm.
it confidence? Is it just not knowing how to
Mm.
the steps? Like, tell us about that.
There are so many different things, but I do think at the root of what is essential to me is being able to feel themselves, because I do think that until we're willing to sit with ourselves and really feel what's true for us, we can't come out of our body and find expression. We can't put another character on our body. I think that being able to get deeply, profoundly honest and sit with ourselves in acceptance and then find expression from there. So I do think that even when I'm like going in and working on a play and we're finding, a body language for a particular character, maybe working on staging or choreography for a scene, I still think at the heart of it, I'm like, who are you? What do you feel? Okay, now what does this character feel? Who are they? Let's
Mhm,
try to, find a way to inhabit a body through the filter of this character.
mhm,
Don't believe in bringing up the actor's real life experiences in order to portray a character. I do think that those real life experiences give you a map of how feelings and posture, gesture, movement, expression intertwine, meaning if I bring my shoulders up and I bring them together and I slightly bring my head back toward my back body, it's going to bring up a feeling.
Mhm.
I That's useful. I think that being like, do you remember a time when you were really, really scared? Okay, go back into that. No, that's trauma, that's abuse. But the body has postures and gestures and angles and inclinations that do bring up a fairly regular, meaning people from different cultures, different lived experiences, race, gender identity, etc., certain ways that we hold ourselves are
Oh
going
yeah.
to naturally bring up very common emotions in most people. And of course, there are, outliers and places where our lived experience has reformed us in a certain way.
Right.
For the most part, there's certain, angles and directions and ways and postures that are going to bring some truthful feeling through the body and be visible and recognizable out in the world.
Well, and I so love that you're talking about this because from my background as a physical therapist too, that's what we do. We analyze people's gait, we analyze their movement patterns, but not from a somatic place. And in my early world of PT, it was very objective, this, then this, then this. All that other stuff is woo. We don't believe in that. And now I'm so thankful to have had people like you in my life to open the world and open my eyes to, but what about this trauma that we had? What about this posture that only comes along with this situation? What about, and being able to then help my patients in that space is incredible. And there's so much more of it needed. So, can you talk a little bit more? Did you say Laban? Is
Yeah,
that how it's? Can
Laban.
you
Yeah,
talk a little bit more about that study
yeah,
and what comes of it?
yeah. So two people, Rudolf Laban and Irmgard Bartenieff, make the practice up together. Laban was an Austro-Hungarian choreographer and really philosopher and mathematician.
Oh,
um,
wow.
in the mid 20th century, surrounding World War II, and he went to London uh, and started working with the Allies to work in the munitions factory for the UK to help them create their munitions more efficiently. And what he did was he went into the factory and he's like, okay, that job requires these particular dynamics, quick,
Mhm,
but also delicate. So fast and delicate and precise. And
mhm.
the person doing it is this like big frame and has a very like diffuse energy and is very strong and is not the right person for that. They should be over there because that job requires these dynamics. And
Right.
so he started analyzing human dynamics, which is how we do what we do. You move your hand forward. Do you move it forward like it's floating? Do you move it forward like it's jabbing, right? The adjective or verb that you would put after that moves the hand forward is human dynamics or
Mhm.
how, and we call that effort. Then he started expanding out. He wanted to create a system of notation for human movement similar to music notation. So you can,
Okay.
composer can write a symphony and then that symphony is around forever. That composer can leave us and that symphony can be performed forever. But you make a
Right.
dance, this was before video, and
Right.
maybe your dancers kind of remember it, maybe they teach it to somebody else, it's basically gone.
Right.
So he started analyzing what body parts are doing what actions. That's body. In what directions, dimensions, planes, diagonals, with what kind of organization, and then how it's doing it. That's effort. And then this slightly more amorphous category called shape, which is why do I think that person is moving? Are they
Mhm.
moving for themselves? Are they moving to reach a place? Or are they moving in adaptive, negotiating, sensing, feeling?
Mhm.
So that whole system is called Laban Bartenieff Movement Analysis. And
Okay.
Bartenieff was a physical therapist, and she studied with Laban, and then she came to New York, and she was running the physical therapy program in the 50s and 60s. Pretty
Mhm.
amazing that a woman got rose the ranks like that.
Right.
She was working predominantly with kids who are recovering from polio, and she was
Oh,
trying to get
beautiful.
them walking again, and then nothing in their traditional physical therapy practices were working. It was a lot of passive manipulation of the body, and it wasn't stimulating that neurological inciting event that allows the body to start the brain to become more plastic and start to develop new pathways, right? So
Right.
polio had diminished
Mhm.
all of this ability and action,
Mhm.
and the physical therapy practices of the time were not helping to rewire that patterning. So she
Right.
went back to developmental movement and started looking at these patterns that babies follow, this cellular breath pattern, and then this core distal pattern, and then this head tail spinal pattern, what we might call homologous upper lower pattern, or homolateral side to side, and then eventually a diagonal or cross lateral pattern. And she
Mhm.
started noticing these patterns mirrored the patterns that the embryo, how the embryo develops in the womb. So it mirrored the gestational patterns. And then when you widen the lens, you see actually it mirrors the development of species as well. So if you go to the Museum of Natural History and you see one of those posters with the amoeba all the way to us, it
Uh-huh.
mirrors those same patterns. You get the upper lower animals, and then you get the reptilian animals that go side to
Uh-huh.
side, and then you eventually
Uh-huh.
get primates that cross their body.
Yes.
So that she started working with dancers on this material and started pulling away from the practices of the time that were very hyper vigilant, formed, stylized dance forms like Graham technique, Cunningham,
Mhm.
ballet,
Mhm.
right? And started talking about like, wait, hold on. The human body is this incredible instrument, and it responds to physics as any other object on earth does. And we have to actually listen to not only the skeleton, the joints, the muscles, tendons, ligaments, but also fascia and breath and fluid systems. So she started talking about movement efficiency.
Mhm.
And then for me, I take her work and then I extrapolate out into meaning that is beyond just the physical. So you're talking about watching your clients, patients walk for gait and analyzing their gait. I do the same thing, but we talk about there's these three building blocks to walking. So there's the weight shift side to side, lateral pelvic shift.
Mhm.
There's this flexion of a leg, thigh lift, where your leg comes closer to your belly. And then there's this forward momentum, forward pelvic shift. And those three things are the building blocks of walking. And so I'll have people walk around the room and we're watching them. And I'm asking people to look at these three building blocks and saying, if it was a mixing board, which one might you turn the volume up or down on?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
often I find something needs a little bit more volume. Well, oh, when you're talking about gait, oh, they're not really weight shifting to the side enough, which means they're not really in great balance to lift that other leg. Or once they lift their leg, they're not really taking a distance between the feet that gives you a little bit more fall and momentum. So we're
Mhm.
looking for what has a little lower volume.
Mhm.
And then I give them a correction, usually a hands-on and imagistic correction. And then we bring something new into their walk. Then, and this is the part I've been getting to, I ask the audience, the other people in the workshop, what would you make up about that first character who is walking? And what do you
Mhm.
make up about the second character? Neither one is necessarily true of this actual human. But you're
Right.
sitting at a cafe, you're people watching, you're people judging, right? And we're
You can't take
meaning,
my husband and I anywhere. We're both physical.
yeah. We're meaning making machines. We're trying to figure out the world through our senses. And we're
Right.
trying to do that at a survival level. It may feel fun over a latte, but really the mechanism at play is we're looking at other animals for our own survival.
Right.
Are they a threat to us? Are they going to impregnate us? Right?
Right. Right.
So, you're at a cafe, you saw this first person walk down the street. What do you make up about them? And then you saw this second person walk down the street. What do you make up about them? And then, oh, that first person seemed kind of reserved or like they didn't know where they were going or they were a little apathetic. That second person felt really driven and confident. Or that first person seemed like they had a destination and nothing was going to get in their way. That second person seemed a little bit more flexible and alive. So we start talking about the story that you make up from the outside just
Mhm.
based on three pretty physical, um, strategic ideas that are, really about PT, physical therapy, and biomechanics.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I love that you started this whole conversation with like children's developmental stages and how that extrapolates to adults. I had the opportunity, I guess, to have a pediatric rotation when I was in PT school. It scared me to death, for one, because I was like, I don't know anything about kids. But all the years after, I've worked with adults with neurological diseases. So the neuroplasticity, teaching these kiddos how to walk for the first time, helped me then reteach these older adults who'd had strokes, who had Parkinson's disease, who were suffering from ALS, these movement patterns and the neuroplasticity that goes along with that. And dance is so important. There are Tai Chi classes and dance classes for Parkinson's disease. And anything that you can do to express yourself, to improve your balance, to have fun. Let's face it, I mean, dance is so fun. Um, I just love the work that you're doing because so many people, at least in my generation, I feel like there's like ballet and then there's hip hop and lyrical contemporary was kind of coming out as I was kind of going out of the dance realm. But ballet specifically is so structured. And I mean, from how your hair has to be and the proper leotard that you're wearing. And on the other hand, I feel like it's so segregated is not the right word. It's so exclusive.
Mhm.
And that's totally not what I stand for now.
Yeah.
And to meet people who are showing you, for one, all the different ways that your body moves and opening this world to everyone and everything and every age and gender identity and everything. It's just so humbling to be in this space with you because dance is an art form and everyone's welcome. And everyone can do something. My husband would sit
Yeah.
here and tell you, like, I can't dance at all. And I'm like, that's not true.
No.
You can.
Yeah, I absolutely, at a cellular level, believe that everybody not only can dance, but is dancing. The way you get out of bed, the way you put on your clothes, the way you shake somebody's hand, the way
Mhm.
you walk, the way you sit in a chair, that is your dance. Your life is your dance. The way your body moves through your life is your dance. And then we can be more or less available in our bodies for that expression. We can be more or less honest. And then, of course, we can play more or less. And I think one thing I hear you talking about is play.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the things that we unfortunately leach out of children. And I work with adults. Um, and one of the things that I often work with adults on is something that Alexandra technique is built around, which is allowing the head to free from the spine. So you've got this big bowling ball sitting on top of this, you know,
Mhm.
not quite vertical, a little snaky vertical column of your spine.
Mhm.
And right around first grade, so babies are just like wandering, eyes open, mouths open usually, and taking everything in. Their head is totally mobile in relation to the world, their curiosity, their desire, and their interest. And then right around first grade, none of that instinct has left their body. And we say, sit down, keep your eyes forward, close your mouth, don't talk,
Mhm.
at least in most public schools in Western education, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
Um, and I think it's, and I'm going to use a big word here, but I think it's got to an abusive quality to it. It's not developmentally appropriate to tell kids at that age to sit down, be quiet, and look in one place and put their head, fix it on their spine. And I feel
Mhm.
like a lot of my work with skull and spine in adults is to undo some of the damage that got done in the educational system, where there was also shame applied. And, it might sound a little woo woo, but I do feel like that joint, your atlo-occipital joint, which is the very top of your spine where your head connects, um, has a bound quality to it that has emotion attached to it. And some of that emotion is shame because we were shamed into fixing our head onto our spine. And we were told that if we, let our eyes and head wander, if we let our mouth open, if we, goodness forbid, let our tongue come out of our mouth, which is a perfectly natural part of our animal body that at that age would be happening.
Mhm.
Don't do any of those, inhibit all of those things. And I'm going to apply shame as a tactic, as a teacher administrator, to get you to sit still and look ahead and don't talk. Close your
Mhm.
mouth. And I think it's damaging. And I have to do a lot of work with adults to slowly go back into that joint and start to listen to it and basically rebuild trust.
Mhm.
Because your body, at a neurological level, stops trusting you when it can't do what it wants to do. So,
Mhm.
anybody that's brought a toddler to a grocery store knows that there's only so long you can force a free spirit into regimented rigidity, um, before it revolts. And so
Uh-huh.
then how the head, spine, etc. revolt are migraines and TMJ, neck tension, jaw tension, eye pain, etc., or postural things that then become shoulder things, including like frozen shoulder, or your ribs don't really move that well, or it goes down the chain and it becomes SI joint stuff, and your pelvis hurts and your lower back always hurts, walking hurts, which then becomes hip pain and knee pain and foot pain, and then becomes bunions and things, and it becomes a lot of things that, yes, Western medicine could name and could even have surgical approaches for. And I'm certainly not saying that you never need any of that stuff, but I am saying that I think if from a young age we stayed really truthful to the way that our body wants to move, both emotionally and physically, we would probably develop fewer of those things, because these like patterns of spasm and chronic tension that then choke off nerves and create adhesions in the fascia and then create little subluxations and little postural shifts. It's a cycle that becomes dysfunction and discomfort that I'm just trying to pull us back from, myself included.
Oh, yeah. It's so interesting that you are talking about all of this because I just had this image of my daughter yesterday after school, and she was just all over the place. And it was like somebody had put her in a room by herself and she hadn't talked to anybody all day. And she was, and I was just like, oh, okay. Oh, can we take a breath, please?
Yeah.
And I'm realizing it is totally a response to how she's had to be all day and had to be here and look here and
Yeah.
don't be too loud and no,
Yeah.
stop talking, and she just has all this energy to get out
Yeah.
after. And the other side of that, I studied a lot working with patients with neurological issues, but also the McKinsey techniques and the McKinsey Institute for back and neck. And so much of it is based on movement patterns and how we weren't meant to sit for hours and hours a day or stand.
Right.
All of our joints were meant to move in their full
Mm-hmm.
motion.
Range.
And when you don't use that, you get stiff and painful and you hurt.
Yeah.
And then you don't move as much because you hurt.
Yeah.
So just encouraging people to get out and move and do things that feel comfortable. And I mean, I even to this day, I'm not obviously in class anymore. I can't imagine going and sitting in a classroom for how long are kids in school? 6 or
Yeah.
7 hours?
ask.
No.
Yeah.
I'm standing right now.
Yeah. And I think it's useful for me to remember that if you think about the phrasing and speed of our physical evolution from, primate to where we are now, there's been this, really slow roll of development. But then at a certain point, our brain hit a critical point where we could develop our world faster than our body was continuing to evolve. So,
Hmm.
the industrial revolution and the technological
Right.
revolution, jet travel, not to mention rocket travel,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
creates this opportunity for us to live in this very evolved way on a certain spectrum. But our physical animal bodies, I don't feel, have had the time to evolve to it, which is
Oh,
what
yeah.
I think jet lag is, right? Like at a at an evolutionary from an evolutionary perspective, we were, walking, and then we learned to ride animals, and then, maybe we developed these vehicles that you could roll on the street, bicycles, and, horse and carriages, and then eventually cars, buses, trains. All
Hmm.
I feel like stayed within a certain like phrasing of our evolution. But then in a beat, we developed the ability to fly. And
Hmm.
that goes, however many times faster it goes than a car. Um, our systems did not develop that fast. And so then we land, and of course, we've flown to a different time zone, and our body's like, I have no ability to regulate to this. It's going to take me a day for every hour, because that's about how long it would have taken me to get here by a horse,
Right.
right?
I love that because we moved from the Pacific Northwest to Colorado about a year and a half ago. And yeah, driving here, took us about a day and a half to get to the next time zone. And then, actually, I guess we were only 1 hour off, but I mean, we didn't even feel it driving.
Sure.
So yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. But
And
I
so then
think
all
so
the rest of this, like, technology and sitting at a screen, sitting at a desk, etc., like none of that has really followed the same pacing of evolution that our body is following. So all of it, and, let's be honest, the food we eat, and I'm not against, I'm not staunchly anything. I'm not like on a paleo diet. We should eat like cavemen, etc. Do it if you want. That's great. It's not my thing. But when we think about, when you talk about we're meant not even to be standing, but to be moving in our full range of motion in all of our joints pretty much all the time, you think about like hunting, gathering, that's, bending and twisting and pulling and then shooting and running and jumping. And, that's what our body is still at an evolutionary place to be doing. So, when we can manage to do that, and dance is one thing that does it really well, to find that full range of human motion in the body for a given period of time. And it's not that I don't believe in, Pilates or yoga or lots of different forms. I think whatever works for you is wonderful. More movement is just more movement. Better is better.
right.
And dance is one of the forms of physical activity that actually does engage this like completely holistic, not every form of dance, but a very holistic, full bodied, three-dimensional way of moving in the world that's more where we're at in terms of evolution.
Well, and a colleague and good friend of mine has done a lot of study on exercise and Alzheimer's, exercise and cognitive decline. And he speaks all the time about how important and one of the best things you can do is some form of dance. He's like, there's not a specific one, but the neuroplasticity that has to happen and the cognitive attention and all of the things that have to happen for you to learn a new dance, for you to learn the steps, for you to be able to have the balance to spin or turn or dip or whatever. That is one of the best things to stave off cognitive decline than anything else. He would also talk about nutrition and everything, but dance, if you can find any type of dance that speaks to you, you the world is open to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And there are tons of um, peer-reviewed, double-blind, like really well-researched studies that show that dance is an amazing neuroconnector and way to increase, like decrease dementia, Alzheimer's, support with Parkinson's, because you find those integrative patterns in your body and the stability mobility relationships and your equilibrium, vestibular, all of it gets affected when we dance.
I love that. I want to make sure that our audience knows how to get in touch with you, how to follow you, how to come see a show if they're nearby. So how do they do that?
My name is Alexandra Beller, and my website is Alexandra Beller Dances. If you just Google that one, a lot of stuff comes up, including a bunch of free classes are on there, a couple lectures. There are a few sample sections from my book. So, and you can find me there. You can find the classes I teach, and if anybody's interested in an online or live private session to talk about their movement function, that's all on there. So Alexandra Beller, and I'm just very findable on the internet.
Love that. Is there anything that you'd like to leave our audience with today? Any last things that we haven't talked about, or any last wisdom that you want to impart?
Or just maybe leave it with this reminder that we're rejecting binaries and all or nothing frameworks all over the place in our society. And to have an all or nothing, like I'm going to go take 3 dance classes a week, or I'm going to sit in front of the TV and watch Netflix, is
Mhm.
a binary we need to break. Anything that you're doing that's different from what you're doing now is more, is better, and better is better. And
Mhm.
so, things that hurt you, we don't need to push towards things that hurt us. There are a lot of, uh, push yourself philosophies, and it's not that it doesn't help to say, like, take the stairs instead of the escalator or the elevator. But if you're suffering from a knee or hip or lower back pain, and every time you take the stairs it feels like torture to you, that's not your movement, and you
Mhm.
don't need to push towards that. What is your movement? What helps you feel? And that if you work at a desk, you're in a more sedentary situation, just sitting at your desk and feeling for a moment, maybe letting your lower back soften into the chair, maybe feeling your feet on the floor, maybe taking your shoes off underneath your desk and feeling the soles of your feet right against the floor, doing a little weight shift, seeing if you maybe could allow the spine to move the head. But any little bits of feeling yourself and getting into some kind of flow, every little bit brings you more in, and it also brings you more out. And so I just would like to leave with the reminder that it doesn't have to be a formal class. You don't have to join a gym. You don't have to sign up for something. Everything that you do that helps you get more in touch with your body gives you more truth and more ability to feel and sense other people, which is empathy, and more ability to take action and be decisive in the world and maneuver your life in the direction that's going to feel truthful to you and is going to illuminate your instinct and intuition more, which is going to help you make better choices. So just in opening, cracking the window to more movement, more self-awareness doesn't need to cost money, doesn't need to take a ton of time. It's really just what you're paying attention to. And am I paying attention to the future and what I'm going to get? Maybe a little bit, but am I paying attention to my body and what's happening now? And I do believe that it's one of the most worthwhile things we can pay attention to.
I'm so glad that you ended there, because it is learning to trust yourself again and feel what feels good to you is the most important thing that you can do with your life.
Yeah. And if you're someone that, like, struggles with boundaries, consent, etc., don't know how to stand up for yourself, advocate for yourself, one of the best ways to do it is not to get tougher and more confident, but to go inside and get softer and more aware, because then you find yourself. And once you find yourself, you're going to want to stand up for that person you find.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for being on today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
As we close out today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Your next level is already within you. If you're feeling that pull for more clarity, more alignment, and more courage to step fully into who you're meant to be, this is your invitation to take the next step. Whether you're an entrepreneur ready to scale or a woman standing at the edge of something bigger, the path forward starts with trusting your desires, owning your worth, and leading with your inner knowing. This is exactly what I offer: private VIP coaching, and where I guide women inside the 10K Club and 50K Club through consulting with She Sells and Superhuman Selling to help you gain clarity, step into aligned action, and build a life and business that reflects your highest vision. If you're ready to explore what's next, let's have a conversation. Book a free call now at www.corywinn.com/free call. I can't wait to connect with you. Talk soon.